These are all the 17 major deaths in One Piece. Whitebeard's death ended the Great Pirate Era and marked the dawn of the new generation. There was also a death that bravely exposed the true colors of the world government and its authority. And there's even a death that literally shook the entire world. Not just because of his passing, but because of the truth he revealed to the world. Some of them might be extremely tragic and hard to bear, but there were also deaths that were so influential they became major turning points in the series. And that is Dr. Vegapunk. In his death, he was able to convey powerful revelations to the world. He started with an insane message that the world will sink, and ended up with a statement that the fate of the world lies in the hands of those who will claim the One Piece. Damn, bro, that's like saying the greatest treasure of the One Piece will either save or destroy the world. Dr. Vegapunk's curiosity drove him to uncover the most forbidden secrets of the Void Century. But that cost him something, his life, when the government he worked for ordered his execution. During his time working for the world government, Vegapunk achieved a lot for them, especially when he created the powerful humanoid weapons, the Pacifistas and the Seraphims. But he didn't stop there. Vegapunk also created the Mother Flame, which is basically an eternal fire. This flame was exactly what was needed to power up an ancient weapon that wiped out the entire kingdom in Leloucha in seconds. It was revealed that among Vegapunk's satellites, a traitor stole a portion of the Mother Flame and struck a deal with the Gorosei to betray Vegapunk and the other satellites in exchange for Celestial Dragon status. It turned out that York, aka Greed, was the one who betrayed Vegapunk and teamed up with the Gorosei to eliminate him after he tried to uncover the darkest secrets of the Void Century. Vegapunk knew he would be executed. So along with the other satellites, Shaka and Pythagoras, they devised a foolproof plan to broadcast everything they had discovered the moment Stella died. And in the end, Vegapunk was killed by an old friend, Admiral Kizaru, which triggered the broadcast that shook the entire world. But it wasn't just Vegapunk who died. Most of the satellites also sacrificed themselves in one way or another after they were cornered in a tight spot when the Gorosei went to Egghead, specifically to kill Vegapunk. Pythagoras was killed by S-Snake when he was eventually crushed by their own creation. Shaka, on the other hand, faced an untimely death when he was shot by York, who had previously ordered the Seraphim to destroy everyone else in Egghead. Atlas saved Lilith and the Straw Hats from New Zero by sacrificing herself and stopping the Gorosei's chase with a massive explosion. Despite knowing he would die, Vegapunk turned the tables and ultimately claimed victory by broadcasting the truth about the Void Century and the people linked to it, like Roger and the mysterious D-Clan members. He even saw the broadcast as a huge tribute to the sacrifices of the scholars of Ohara, who were the major source of Vegapunk's knowledge about the forgotten history. Back then, the Ohara scholars led by Professor and Archaeologist Clover were as close as anyone could get to unlocking the secrets of the Void Century. That's why the world government immediately took drastic measures to shut down all this research and ordered a brutal buster call that destroyed the entire island. It was a complete wipeout, since the people of Ohara didn't have any means to protect themselves from the Marines. It was practically a hate crime. Their deaths proved that lives are always at risk whenever anyone tries to uncover the Void Century's secrets. The world government was so corrupt that they even demonized Ohara by spreading the lie that these scholars only wanted global destruction, like Nico Robin, as you know, is considered the demon child just because of her roots of being born in Ohara. Her mom, Nico Olivia, was one of Ohara's top scholars who risked her life to uncover the world's hidden history. The extermination of Ohara also sparked the Revolutionary Army after Dragon got fed up with how the authorities treated and fooled the common people. And actually, things became even more intriguing when it was revealed that Clover was a member of the D-Clan, just like Dragon. It just proves that the D-Clan is always shaking the world by every means possible, just like Dragon and his army. And another who led the only group that learned the history of the world, Gol D. Roger. Vegapunk revealed in chapter 1016 that the Pirate King and his crew learned about the Void Century after they conquered. I'm just thinking, could it be that Roger surrendered himself to the Marines so he could use his death as an announcement to the world? I mean, if you think about it, Roger was already dying from an unknown illness. When they reached the final island, Roger also said that they came too early. Like Shirahoshi aka Poseidon, one of the ancient weapons wasn't even born yet. Roger might have learned the role of these ancient weapons and realized that even though he had uncovered the mysteries of the world, they couldn't act upon them. This is probably why Roger surrendered himself to the world government. He knew that as the Pirate King, he would be publicly executed and that the whole world would definitely be watching. So he used this opportunity to leave what he and his crew had discovered in the hands of the future generation, who could claim the treasure and eventually act upon it. But what if Roger's obsession with conquering the Grand Line and reaching the final island wasn't just about uncovering its secrets? What if instead he already knew everything right from the start, and his journey was simply about confirming the legends he had always known? Because according to this theory, Roger knew far more than we ever imagined right from the very beginning. Like, remember Roger's words to Rayleigh when they first met? The future Pirate King said, "Let's turn the world upside down together." And Roger literally meant it because, as Vegapunk said, the world will eventually sink. According to the theory, some members of the D clan have passed down secrets of the Void Century from generation to generation. Roger was obsessed with reaching the island because he knew the only way to confirm those crazy stories was to see it for himself. This was probably why he was laughing as soon as they learned the secrets of the Void Century, because he had just verified the truth about the stories that were passed down to him. And on his execution platform, he wanted everyone to find out what he had learned by getting them to go after the treasure he had and the secrets he discovered. Roger's death was so influential that it started the Great Pirate Era. In the end, he totally tricked the Marines and used his public execution to spark the dawn of the next generation. Because of this, the Navy got so pissed that they wanted to erase any trace of Roger's legacy. The Marines even went as far as hunting down his possible bloodlines, searching for unborn kids to make sure no one like Roger would pop up again. Little did the Marines know that Roger's Pookie, Portgas D, managed to hold a pregnancy for 20 long months. Damn, that's like an elephant. The elephants hold him like 18 to 22 months. So yeah, I guess we can call Ace an elephant baby. But because of this extended pregnancy, she died right after giving birth to Ace. And even though Ace never met his mom, he loved her and he even took her name over his dad's. He became known to the world as Portgas D Ace, the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates. Ace's death was one of the major turning points in the story. From an adventure-packed, fight-filled series, Oda hit us with the devastating death of a well-loved character. It was even more painful because after Luffy managed to freeze his big bro from the execution platform with surprising help from Mr. 3, it looked like they were actually going to escape Marine headquarters. Almost, bro. Almost. But Ace's death ultimately happened when Akainu punched right through him as Ace tried to protect Luffy. And without going to Tim Hortons, Ace had become a donut. But honestly, man, truly, I think this was a bit of a letdown on Ace's part. Okay, listen, bro, before you freak out. Whitebeard brought the entire alliance to Marineford to save his son. The strongest man in the world was even willing to sacrifice himself and stay behind just to give his crew and allies a chance to escape. Whitebeard's death was another gut-wrenching moment, but I'll get to that later. As for Luffy, he gave everything he had to save Ace from execution. From all the injuries he took escaping Impel Down, Luffy barely rested to make it to Marineford. And during the war, he dodged attacks from the admirals, faced off against the strongest swordsman, Mihawk, and even had to fight Kobe and his own grandpa just to save his big bro. But Ace kinda repaid all of Luffy's and Whitebeard's efforts by giving in to Akainu's trash talk about the man Ace considered his dad. Like, bro lost his chill. I know, it's his dad, but this gave Akainu the perfect chance to attack Luffy, almost ending the entire story right there. So Ace had no choice but to block Akainu's magma punch with his own body. Since Akainu's power were far stronger than Ace's fire abilities, Ace took a fatal blow, dying in the process, Rengoku style. In his last moments, Ace told Luffy he was thankful to everyone who loved him, for who he was. I mean, if bro was really thankful, he should have just run off. But I guess plot armor was too thick in those moments. After Ace's death, Luffy realized he needed to get a lot stronger, especially since he was about to tackle the second half of the Grand Line. By the way, remember back in Alabasta, when Ace lit up Sanji's cigarette? There's actually another character who did the same thing and ended up dying just like Ace. And I'm going to break down who that is in just a moment. Now, Ace wasn't the only one who died in the battlefield. He shared a double funeral with his pops, Edward Newgate. Even though Whitebeard died in that war, he died standing after sustaining 152 bullets, 267 sword wounds, and 46 cannonballs. The strongest man stood with pride and with his last breath shouted and declared that the One Piece is real. Man, serious goosebumps. When Ace was about to be executed, his adopted dad, Whitebeard, didn't think twice and headed straight to Navy headquarters, bringing the whole Whitebeard alliance with him. This instantly turned into an all-out war between the strongest man and his formidable allies against the top-tier Marines and the 7 warlords. Whitebeard surprisingly teamed up with Luffy, who also arrived in Marineford to save Ace. Whitebeard and his crew cleared the path for Luffy, whose focus was on reaching the platform and freeing Ace. Whitebeard was so badass that he was literally tanking everything, from cannonballs and swords to the crazy powers of the admirals. And bro, he took them all head on, despite his old age and sickness. Pops was literally in a frenzy, and after successfully freeing Ace, Whitebeard was ready to die so his crew could escape Navy headquarters. But things went south when Ace was killed by Akainu. Whitebeard went into full angry daddy mode and trashed the Admiral, who killed Ace. To make things even worse, Blackbeard arrived in Marineford. And in case you forgot, this mofo was the reason behind Ace's capture, which led to this war in the first place. Whitebeard then shifted his anger to Teach, saying he was the only one he wouldn't call his son. Now that's a real baddie for the daddy. Back then, Blackbeard stirred up a huge mess while he was still part of Whitebeard's crew. He broke the iron law of the Whitebeard pirates by killing Thatch, a division commander, just to get his hands on the Yami Yami no Mi, and eventually left to build his own crew. And Blackbeard wasn't stopping there. He and his newly formed crew of the most notorious criminals from level 6 of Impel down ultimately killed Whitebeard, while Blackbeard also mysteriously took the Gura Gura no Mi and claimed it as his own power. Honestly, almost all the Whitebeard pirates had a tragic end. Aside from Whitebeard, Ace, and even Izu, who helped him reclaim Wano from Kaido, there was another who died protecting his people, but still failed in the end. The 2nd Division commander before Ace, Kozuki Oden. Oden left Wano to join Whitebeard, and was even recruited by Roger for their final trip to Laughdale. Oden may have achieved his dream of sailing the world, but when he returned, the country was in chaos. The legendary samurai from Wano was supposed to be the rightful heir to the Wano shogunate, but Orochi stole his position and took control of the country. It became difficult for Oden to reclaim it because the corrupt shogun was backed by Kaido and the Beast Pirates, who even set up their own base in Onigashima. Oden tried to fight Kaido, but ultimately died because he had to save his retainers and protect the people of Wano while trying to reclaim his country. Even at the end, he didn't give up, enduring being boiled alive in oil while holding his retainers above the boiling pot. Oden was able to save his retainers, but he knew that Kaido would still kill him. Before he died, he left a final wish to his retainers, that they must break down the borders of Wano and open the country to the world. When Oden died, Orochi and the Beast Pirates immediately went after the remaining members of the Kozuki family and their retainers. Oden's wife, Toki, also faced death, but before she died, she managed to send Momo and some of the Kozuki retainers 20 years into the future using her Toki Toki no Mi powers, hoping they would someday be Wano's chance at fighting back against Orochi and Kaido. Actually, even though Toki's already dead, she's still full of mysteries. If you don't remember, she came from the past using her devil fruit abilities. And it wasn't just the distant past, she came from 800 years ago, the end of the Void Century. I'm just thinking, was it a coincidence that she came from a forgotten age and ended up in the present? Why does she specifically want to return to Wano in this era? Could it be connected to Oden's desire to open Wano's borders? What do you think? Probably the best dad award would go to this guy because he sold his soul to the world government just to save a girl from a rare sickness. And she wasn't even his own daughter. Bartholomew Kuma. Actually, the former warlord didn't technically die, but was turned into one of the Navy's most powerful weapons. Despite being a key figure in the Revolutionary Army, Kuma was left with no choice but to give himself up for weapons experiments by the world government in exchange for curing Bonnie. Kuma took her under his wing because she was the daughter of the most important girl in his life, Ginny. Since he had already lost Ginny, he was willing to give everything just to get Bonnie cured, because Bonnie inherited the Sapphire Skill disease, which her mom got after a failed experiment by Saint Saturn. The good news was that there was a man who could treat her sickness, Dr. Vegapunk. The bad news was he was working for the government. Kuma, being the last survivor of the Buccaneer race, was seen as an opportunity by the world government to study the extraordinary strength and physique of these rare people and how they could be used as weapons. Saint Saturn even forced Kuma to give up his own will and become a cyborg weapon for the government as payment for treating Bonnie's sickness. Like, Saturn was just pure evil. After being responsible for the disease, he even used it as leverage against Kuma. It may seem like a hard choice, but Kuma didn't have second thoughts when it came to Bonnie's health and trusted that Vegapunk would carefully manage both Bonnie's treatment and Kuma's transformation. In the end, Kuma died, but Vegapunk made an override in the Pacifistas programming so that Bonnie would have the highest command over them, even above the orders of the Gorosei. So that even though Kuma wouldn't be around by the time he lost his will, Kuma would always be there to protect Bonnie. But after Kuma's death, who do you think will inherit the insane powers of the Pawpaw fruit? It's possible that the Devil Fruit will eventually reappear, and its top-notch abilities will definitely be a game changer when the final war comes into play. Now, arguably, one of the saddest deaths in One Piece wasn't even a human. It was the death of the Straw Hat's ship in Nakama, the Going Meri. It may have been just an inanimate man-made object, but the death of this Nakama was definitely one of the hardest moments to watch in the entire series. I mean, Meri was technically a ship, But the Straw Hats considered her one of their crew, and because they treated Mary so well, her soul even took on a physical form to repair itself and carry the crew a little further. Like when Mary fixed itself in Skypia, after all the damage it took from climbing the knock-up stream to reach Sky Island, and from the attacks by Shuda, one of the 4 priests of the Upper Yard. In chapter 351, Frankie explained that what Usopp saw was called a Klaatbotterman, which is the spirit of a ship that was truly loved and cared for, like the Going Mari. It even pushed beyond its limits again when Mary sailed through the Aqua Laguna and saved the Straw Hats in Ennis Lobby after they rescued Robin. But after that fateful event, the Straw Hats had no choice but to bid their final goodbye to their Nakama. And bro, I know even you cried when the Straw Hats saw Mary off to the sea, thanking her for all the adventures they had together at her funeral. Aside from Mary, who gave it all for the adventures of the Straw Hats, there's another who literally gave his life to save them, Pedro. And actually, his death was hinted at before. Remember when I mentioned there was someone else besides Ace who lit Sanji's cigarette? It was Pedro, who used Electro to help Sanji light up. So yeah, Ace and Pedro were the only ones who lit Sanji's smoke, and they both ended up dead. Lesson learned, just let, Sanji do his thing. Anyway, when the small Sanji retrieval team went to Whole Cake Island, it was like a Mission Impossible style operation, sneaking into one of the biggest territories of Yonko. And to top it off, the Straw Hats also planned to steal a copy of Big Mom's poneglyphs. They eventually saved Sanji with the help from the Fire Tank Pirates and Sanji's family, the Germa 66 army. But escaping became another problem when Luffy and the others were cornered by a rampaging Big Mom and her strongest children, including Katakuri. Pedro didn't want the Straw Hats' adventure to end there and believed that Luffy could be the spark that would bring about a new generation. Kind of a reference to the name of his former crew, the Nox Pirates, which he said symbolized a new dawn. That's why Pedro ultimately sacrificed himself by detonating a huge amount of dynamite wrapped around him, creating chaos that gave the Straw Hats a chance to escape. Pedro almost took Perospero with him in the explosion, but Big Mom's eldest managed to escape death, losing only an arm. Pedro had actually thought this could be the last voyage, knowing he didn't have long to live after Big Mom took 50 years from him. And in his final moments, he remembered what Roger told him when the pirates visited Zou. Roger said that everyone would have their time to shine. Pedro took that quite literally and made it shine, with bombs. A death that definitely caused chaos, and as I mentioned earlier, even helped reveal the secrets of the world government, was the death of the king of Alabasta, Nefertari Cobra. He bravely confronted the Gorosei at the end of the reverie with questions about the history of their family and kingdom. Actually, a lot of things went down after King Cobra's death, and bro, I don't even know where to start. First, the Gorosei were surprised by how much Cobra knew, even stuff they didn't know themselves. Like what happened with the former queen of Alabasta, Nefertari Lily, who was supposed to return to her kingdom after she turned down staying in Merijua. Second, the Gorosei weren't aware of the letter passed down through generations of the Nefertari family, revealing that the royal family of Alabasta was also from the D clan. And lastly, it was a huge shock when Imu showed up in front of Cobra, where the king realized that this only meant death for him. Afterward, the Gorosei finally showed their true forms just to kill him.
I'm dead.
Even though Sabo was there to help him, escaping together was clearly impossible. So Cobra left Sabo with a message for Luffy, revealing that their family also carries the D. With King Cobra's revelation and death, Vivi's safety and the state of Alabasta Kingdom are now clearly in danger. Do you think Vivi will reunite and team up again with the Straw Hats? I guess we're all waiting for that, eh? Arguably the most discriminated race in the whole series are the fishermen. And the death of their hero, Fisher Tiger, is strong proof that the cycle of hate and slavery in the world isn't something that can be changed, overnight at least. He was once a slave in Merijua, but successfully escaped the inhuman treatment of the Celestial Dragons. After pulling off the impossible escape, he even returned to the top of Red Line to free countless other slaves, including humans like Boa and her sisters, and Koala, who, as you know, is now a key figure in the Revolutionary Army. He became a hero to the Ryogo Kingdom for standing against the discrimination of his race, and founded the legendary Sun Pirates, whose main goal was to fight for freedom and liberty, and put an end to the cycle of slavery. But as Tiger was bringing Koala back to her hometown, he was betrayed by the very humans who were supposed to be thanking him for saving Koala. The Sun Pirates managed to escape, but their captain was so badly injured that he needed a blood transfusion to survive. Fisher Tiger's rare blood type. The only way for him to survive was to use human blood from the stolen Navy ship. Tiger strongly refused to owe humans anything. He couldn't allow the blood of the very people who tried to kill him to run in his body, even if it meant his own death. Despite his strong principles of not killing humans and only freeing the oppressed, he still died hating humans, admitting that he could never love them or their evil nature. In the end, he confessed that he couldn't be as compassionate as Queen Otohime, even though he knew that there were good humans out there. Queen Otohime, on the other hand, firmly believed that someday they would be treated as equals by humans. Even in her final moments, she told her sons not to hate or kill her, but to stick to their belief that someday the fishmen would be able to live freely under the sun with other races. Her death was so heartbreaking that her kids couldn't even mourn their own mother. That's because the princess didn't want their little sister, Shirahoshi, to experience the trauma of seeing their mom die in front of them. She didn't have control over her powers yet, and she might have accidentally called upon the Neptunians, causing the destruction of the whole kingdom. It was later revealed that Hody Jones was the one who killed the queen because, like all along, he couldn't accept what Otohime was trying to achieve. Some fishermen, like Hody Jones' gang, really believe that humans are all trash. Well, I know one for sure, my ex. You know, I just realized that characters with foster parents or parent figures in their lives were often more loved by these people than their actual parents. Like Sanji with Zeph, compared to Judge, and even Luffy who had Dadan instead of a dragon. As for Nami, she had Belle-mere, who took care of her and Nojiko like her own daughters. That's why Belle-mere's death was so devastating for a young Nami, and even drove her to a messed up life. Belle-mere even left the Marines to live a peaceful life with their kids, but Arlong took that from them when he invaded Kokoyashi village in Konami Island and killed Belle-mere right in front of Nami. Bro, how messed up is that? And that wasn't even the worst part. Nami was forced to work for the same man who killed her mom just to save the whole village. This made her hate every damn pirate because of how tragic and traumatic her life was. Until, that is, Luffy saved her from the fishman pirate and changed her perspective on what it means to be a pirate. One of the earliest characters who died because of a D member was Kuina, because she fell down D stairs. I mean, it's kind of lame considering she trained as a swordsman every day, so how in the world did she miss a step on the stairs, you know? But even though she was kind of a minor character, her death still had a significant impact on the plot. Because of her, my guy Zoro went on to dream of becoming the greatest swordsman, so I guess we should thank her for that. A death that's probably forgotten by many is that of Don Quixote Rocinante, Corazon of the Don Quixote Pirates. Even though he had a traumatic childhood after leaving the Holy Land and being tortured by the common people, he still ended up working for the Marines to help the very people who made his family's life miserable. This was completely opposite to his big bro, Doflamingo, who only wanted revenge for all the bad things that had happened to them. Rocinante worked as a double agent for the Navy and returned to his big bro, determined to put a stop to his dangerous schemes. And during his time with Doffy, he took care of a sickly kid, Law, and even searched for the best doctors in the world to cure him. Rocinante cared for Law despite the fact that the kid had tried to kill him once. After almost losing hope, Rocinante found out about the Ope Ope no Mi, a fruit that would fully heal Law's sickness, and decided to search for it. Rocinante took the risk of obtaining the devil fruit, knowing that they would eventually clash with Doflamingo, who also wanted the fruit's power. In the end, Rocinante was able to give the fruit to Law, but his identity as a double agent was uncovered, and he was ultimately killed by his own brother, who only considered those loyal to him as his real family. In his final moments, Rocinante used his devil fruit power on Law to keep him silent and hidden, which eventually saved Law from Doflamingo. It was the only thing Rocinante could do because the Nagi Nagi no Mi powers make its user a silent man. Even though Rocinante was strong, being a Marine commander and one of the 4 officers of the Don Quixote Pirates, he couldn't defeat someone like Doflamingo.